Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into a really interesting shift happening in online fashion. Zalando seemed like the top dog for ages, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But
Yeah,
things are changing.
definitely. We've got these new, super budget-friendly companies like Temu and Shein shaking things up in Europe.
And that's forcing Zalando to, well, rethink its strategy quite significantly.
Exactly. We've looked at some analysis on how Zalando, which used to aim for, pretty much everyone, is now changing its customer focus and its marketing.
It's a classic case of a big player having to adapt, really. Competition heats up, and you've got to react.
For sure. And it's not like Zalando hasn't had challenges. Those return costs, they've been climbing.
Hmm.
I saw a figure for Switzerland, something like up to 50% of orders getting sent back. That's huge.
Wow, 50%. Yeah, that's unsustainable. Plus the price pressure from those Asian discount retailers you mentioned.
Right. So our mission today is to unpack what Zalando's actually doing differently. What are these key changes, and what could they mean for online fashion and, well, for us as shoppers?
Okay, so maybe the biggest change to start with is their whole approach to customers, their segmentation strategy.
You mean who they're trying to sell to?
Exactly. Think back. Zalando's initial success was built on reaching everyone. Huge selection, free shipping, free returns. It was all about mass appeal.
Yeah, that convenience was definitely their calling card. Super easy.
But as you said, with those high return costs and fierce price competition, that model is getting really tough to maintain.
So they're changing tack.
Precisely. They're moving towards what the sources call value-oriented segmentation.
Value-oriented. Okay, what does that mean in practice?
It means instead of just trying to get as many customers as possible, they're now really focusing on figuring out which customers actually bring long-term value, profitability to the business.
Okay, so focusing on profit, how does that work?
Well, at its most basic, it means if you're a customer who orders tons of stuff but sends almost all of it back, you're maybe not their ideal target anymore.
Interesting.
In fact, some sources suggest they're actively de-investing in those segments, basically trying not to attract or serve customers who have super high return rates because they cost more than they bring in.
Wow, okay. Actively excluding certain customer types. That's quite a shift from everyone's welcome.
It really is. It's a gamble, of course. You risk shrinking your market share if you push away too many people.
So it's less about just getting orders and more about getting orders that stick and from customers who spend well.
Exactly that. The spotlight is moving towards what they see as high-value, high-margin customer groups, people who appreciate quality, maybe return less frequently, and ideally stick around longer.
And how do they identify these valuable customers? Is it just looking at like age and location and what they bought before?
It used to be more like that, but not so much anymore. They're leaning much more heavily into behavioristic segmentation.
Behavioristic, what's that involve?
It means analyzing how people actually shop and interact with the platform, especially their return patterns, but also how they browse, what decision process leads to a purchase, that kind of thing.
Ah, okay. So not just who you are, but what you actually do on the site.
Right. They're using a lot of data analytics to spot patterns. So beyond demographics, they're combining this behavioristic view with, well, economic factors. A customer might fit the old target profile, but if their actual behavior shows they generate very little profit, maybe because of returns, they might get filtered out.
I see. So it's a mix. In marketing, you learn about demographic, geographic, psychographic, behavioral segmentation. Sounds like Zalando's layering behavioral and economic filters quite strongly now.
That's a great way to put it. And naturally, changing who you're targeting means you have to adjust your whole marketing approach.
The famous 4Ps.
Exactly. Product, price, place, which is distribution and promotion, or communication. They're tweaking all of them.
All right, let's break those down. What about product policy? What's changing there?
A really big theme here is using personalization and technology, both to stand out from competitors and, crucially, to try and reduce those return rates we talked about.
Okay, tech to reduce returns. Does that connect to that company they bought, Deeper?
Yes, absolutely. Deeper is all about 3D and augmented reality. So, Zalando bought them to integrate virtual try-on technology.
Ah, so you can kind of see how something looks on you before you even buy it?
That's the idea. If you can get a better sense of the fit and look virtually, you're hopefully less likely to need to return it. It's clever. Trying to bridge that gap between shopping online and actually trying something on in a store.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We've all ordered things that just didn't fit right. Virtual try-on could definitely help. What else on the product side?
They're also doubling down on things like size advisors, using avatars, and really personalized recommendations. This involves a lot of big data and machine learning to predict what's most likely to fit you specifically.
So differentiating themselves through tech features, making the product experience better and smarter.
Precisely. It's about creating unique selling points beyond just the clothes themselves, focusing on that customer experience in a very crowded market.
Okay, makes sense. What about the next P price? How are they dealing with the pressure from the likes of Temu and Shine?
Well, they seem to be consciously deciding not to get into a price war at the very bottom end.
So not trying to be the cheapest.
No, instead they're positioning themselves more firmly in the mid to upper price segment. The thinking is that price pressure is less intense there and profit margins are potentially better.
Right, targeting customers may be willing to pay a bit more for brand, quality, or those tech features we just mentioned.
Exactly. More premium, less discount. It's also interesting how they're getting more flexible with pricing, partly through their marketplace model,
How so?
by allowing third-party sellers on their platform to set their own return conditions.
Ah, okay. So if I buy something directly from Zalando, maybe returns are still free. But if it's from a partner brand selling through Zalando,
The return policy might be different. Maybe there's a fee or a shorter return window. It makes the overall pricing structure less uniform, but gives Zalando more flexibility on costs associated with returns from third parties.
that's a big change for customers, though. You'd have to pay more attention to who you're actually buying from on the site. Could affect trust, maybe.
Potentially. It ties into strategies like premium pricing or value-based pricing, focusing on the overall value proposition, not just the lowest price tag. Customers willing to pay more for the brand or the service.
Understood. Okay, moving on to place or distribution.
Yeah.
How products get to us. What's changing?
The main thing here is strengthening that platform strategy, integrating more third-party sellers more deeply.
Which connects back to the point about return policies, right?
Exactly. It allows Zalando to offer a wider range, act as the platform operator, but have more flexibility in the overall value chain because individual sellers can have different rules, especially around returns. It's sort of an evolution of their multi-channel approach.
Right. Still selling their own stuff, but expanding the marketplace aspect and its associated cost structure.
Yes, and returns are obviously a huge part of that calculation.
Definitely. Okay, last P. Promotion or communication. How are they talking to customers differently?
One really interesting tactic is the increased use of what behavioral economists call nudges.
Nudges. What do you mean?
Well, imagine you're about to process a return online. You might see a little message pop up,
Like what?
maybe something highlighting the environmental impact. Returning this adds to carbon emissions. Or perhaps social proof, like most customers who kept similar items rated them highly.
Ah, I see. Subtle prompts to make you reconsider the return.
Exactly. They're not forcing you, just gently, nudging your decision-making. Studies suggest these can actually make a difference in reducing returns.
That's fascinating. Using psychology to influence behavior around returns.
And it also aligns with their more premium positioning. You see more storytelling around things like sustainability and quality in their communication now, supporting that brand image.
So it's behavioral marketing, basically, based on how people actually make decisions.
It's spot on. It's all linked.
Now, alongside tweaking the 4Ps, acquisitions M&A seem to be a big part of Zalando's strategy, too.
Yes, definitely. They've used acquisitions quite strategically to bolster their position. The takeover of About You was a major one.
Right, that caused quite a stir. What was the main goal there?
Primarily, it seems, to strengthen their foothold in German-speaking markets, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and also reach slightly different customer groups that About You was strong with.
So consolidating their core market.
Exactly. If you think about it using the Ansoff matrix framework, it's classic market penetration and consolidation, trying to get synergies in customer analysis, branding, maybe even logistics down the line.
Okay. And then the deeper acquisition we talked about earlier, how does that fit strategically?
That one's clearly about building a technological edge, using AR for virtual try-ons.
So not entering a new market, but improving the product offering.
Right. In Ansoff terms, that's product development. Offering their existing products clothes, but with new innovative features thanks to the acquired technology.
So M&A is a key tool for them, hitting different growth strategies, market penetration with product development with deeper.
Precisely. And looking at the whole picture, Zalando's transformation is, well, It's a really compelling case study in strategic marketing, reacting to major market shifts and uncertainty.
Yeah, adjusting the customer focus, tweaking all the marketing tools, making strategic acquisitions.
It shows how an established giant tries to perform that tricky balancing act between keeping customers happy and staying profitable, especially when facing new, aggressive competition.
And it really seems like they're aiming to be seen not just as convenient, but as a leader in fashion tech and quality in Europe.
That looks like the long-term goal. But
Yeah.
as you hinted earlier, the big question is whether customers will stick with them through these changes.
Especially those profitable customers they're now focusing on. Can they keep their trust and loyalty while potentially making the experience less seamless for others, like with varied return policies?
That's the tightrope they're walking. It's a fascinating interplay of marketing strategy, technology adoption, and raw market forces playing out right now.
It really is. What ultimately wins out in online fashion is still very much up for grabs. Zalando's moves are definitely something to keep watching.
Absolutely. It gives you a lot to think about regarding the future of how we'll all shop for clothes online.
Definitely food for thought. Thanks so much for this deep dive.